Hello, everyone, and welcome to People of Interest. I am your host, Miguel Guanipa. People of Interest is premised on the idea that everyone out there has a story to tell, and we invite people from all walks of life to the show to share the story with us. And so perhaps by listening to the story, we can be entertained or encouraged or even perhaps inspired. Today, my guest is an outdoors enthusiast, an adventure seeker, a family man, and an entrepreneur, and a good new friend that I made recently. This is Barry Gold. Barry, thank you for coming to the show.
Thank you.
Welcome.
It's a pleasure.
Welcome. Well, I know that actually one thing that I was thinking about before inviting you to the show is that Barry has had me to his home a couple of. You see who's behind the back? What I have there for you?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the guy that you like.
Building.
So anyway,
Very slick.
I was when I went to the house, your house. You great host. You very hospitable. You and your wife.
Thank you.
And one of the things I appreciated is that your head is as big as mine. And so I was looking for a hat when we went out hiking, and I said I had the perfect size.
Yes.
Perfect
Not
size.
everyone would have that for you.
Not everyone, not even the stores.
That's right. That's right.
So-
that's we share that.
Yeah, so that was very nice,
That's very nice.
and I appreciate that. You know, when I was tell you a little story. Anybody ever give you a hard time when you were a kid because of? Well, you're a kind of proportion. You're a tall guy. I'm a small guy.
Yeah.
But nobody ever give you a hard time about having a big head or anything like that.
Having a big head? No.
Yeah.
No. Not about having a big head, but
about all the things.
when you grow up in any kind of community that's mixed, you tend to be subject to certain types of experiences. So I did experience a lot of bullying when I was a
okay.
kid.
Oh.
I didn't get tall until I was in high school. So prior to then, I experienced a lot of bullying, which was not uncommon from where I was living and growing up, but it was it was bothersome.
Yeah. What was the nature of this bullying? Why did they bully you, pick on you? Like, besides the fact that you were a little guy.
A little guy.
Would
It was anti-Semitism.
You,
So I grew up in an area that where Jewish folks moved out from Brooklyn out to Long Island, and into an area that was not heavily Jewish, and by virtue of coming into the area, we were subjected to anti-Semitism.
So how old were you when this was happening?
When we moved out there, I was 2, so I was a baby. But and we lived 2 doors down from Jimmy Breslin, who was a famous author. He wrote the book "The Gang That Couldn't Shoot Straight," and he was a journalist, I think, for the New York Post or the Daily News, and he ended up leaving our street and leaving a very nasty note, a sign that he made that he put in his garage to say that how he was not going to miss the Jews on the street. So yeah,
What was the name of his book?
Jimmy Breslin, the Gang That Couldn't Shoot Straight.
Is that
which
a
was
Western?
which is a great book.
Yeah.
Jimmy Breslin was a real street guy.
Yeah.
And followed the police beat, and it was either the New York Post or the Daily News, and so it was just we would typically suffer bullying, physical abuse, having rocks thrown at us, being called
Really?
names. Yeah, but then by the time I was around 14, 15, I grew to around 6'5".
Yeah, they didn't
And
bother you
they
anymore.
didn't bother me anymore.
No?
So no.
So what is it? How did they look at you and you thought like, oh, this guy looks like he's Jewish, or was it the family? Was it how did they get around to figuring out that you were?
It just, I think, was fairly obvious from my appearance and from my name, and sort of
You weren't wearing a hat.
an ethnic name. It wasn't a hat. No, sort of. I have a Jewish profile, and
Oh my goodness! But
yeah,
isn't that some people say?
yeah, yeah. So it's unfortunate, but so thankfully I haven't experienced that since. But it's definitely part of growing up. All the kids in my
So
neighborhood.
that was quite an experience when you were younger then.
Yeah. It definitely helped to shape me and my Jewish identity. It's definitely been an important part of my life.
Yeah, so talk to me a little bit about that. What did that teach you? That was pretty nasty. If somebody would leave a note just like that. I mean, I'm living in the neighborhood, and I'm going to leave this note here.
Well,
to
it
insult
just
the Jewish
it was a Jimmy Breslin was he was sort of an eccentric character, and I think more an exception than the norm.
Yeah.
But he was very overt with his anti-Semitic feelings.
Wow.
And it's just a reflection of society. Some people can't live with others comfortably and become overt about it and negative. But thankfully, as I said, I haven't experienced that ever since.
So you feel comfortable living
I
in
feel
society
comfortable.
today? You're more comfortable.
Yeah,
Huh.
absolutely. But it's a life lesson. And you see all the divisiveness in the world today, and it's still an issue. It hasn't
Yeah.
gone away.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it's worse or better, but it's certainly in the news every day in terms of people are ostracized and marginalized, in all parts of the world. So it's
Well, I call myself a Christian, and I don't know what you hear when you hear that first as a Jewish person. What do you hear? Is it not a? Is it like mostly because I think of as a Christian and I look at the scriptures and I look at the Old Testament, which would be your scriptures,
right.
and I think there's a place where the Bible talks about the Jewish people as the apple of God's eye, and I'm thinking, if you're the apple of God's eye, I should be careful how I treat you. What you think?
I don't really know, and I don't know if
It is.
that mythology is it's
It's very interesting though, and I think
yeah.
I mean God loves the Jewish people.
God loves everyone.
I know, but the
Doesn't
Jewish
God?
people, He picked the Jewish people,
The
to
chosen
bring
people,
the chosen people.
Right. Yeah.
So to me, it's unfathomable that you would think I'm going to treat the Jewish people differently in a bad way. Not,
But why would anyone want to cause harm or treat anyone differently from anyone else?
Yeah.
It's so I don't think of Christianity in a way any other than it's a personal choice, and it's all a function of how we're raised and the families typically that we're born into. Some people choose to change their religious orientation later in life as adults, but for just about everybody else, it's how you were raised.
boy, this conversation got heavy real quick, huh?
It did. It
You
really
started
did.
it.
It's my fault. It's my fault.
I was just kidding.
It's okay.
No, but I find that very interesting, and I'll tell you something. Another thing that I know, since we're on the subject, there's a website show that I've been watching that's called One for Israel.
One for Israel.
One for Israel, and it's actually Jewish people that have converted to Christianity. And so they think of what they call Yeshua. They think of Jesus, and some of the stories that they have is that some of them didn't know that Jesus was Jewish.
Mm-hmm.
They thought, oh, Jesus is a Catholic God or something like that. And they never. And I thought that's interesting though. Yeah.
It would be surprising to me that anyone who was Jewish was unaware of that fact, that Jesus was Jewish. So
That was
yeah,
so you are aware of that then?
yeah, of course,
Oh,
of course.
so
Well,
you,
I was educated. I went to Hebrew school and
huh?
was bar mitzvahed, and
You know how to read Hebrew? Or?
I do.
You do?
I do.
Oh, my
I
goodness.
can't speak it fluently, but I can read it because it's a symbol-based language.
Huh?
So I did live in Israel for 7 months. So
I never talk with this guy about these things when I go to his house.
it's all right. We have a new vein of discussion
Yes, yes. So That's great. So then you can read the Old Testament in Jewish, or you can understand a
In
lot of
Hebrew.
it in Hebrew. I'm sorry. Sorry about that. In Hebrew,
Yep.
because somebody was telling me one time that Hebrew is actually a very beautiful language. Is that?
Yes. I would say that it is.
Yeah.
And I'm certainly not, scholarly in relation to, Jewish history or the Hebrew language, but it is a beautiful language. And when I lived there for 7 months, I had an opportunity to become, more comfortable with the language, so I could actually think in Hebrew and respond to questions in Hebrew, and that was pretty exciting
Wow.
to be immersed in it.
Do you
But I
go
was
back
young.
there once in a while?
I haven't been back
No?
in 40 years, so I was there when I
40
was
years.
right out of college.
So,
I
wow.
went there.
So you just aged yourself right there by saying.
I'm 60. I am 60. That is correct. 39 years ago.
Oh.
Yep.
Well, you're in pretty good shape for a 60-year-old guy.
Hey.
No?
Hey.
You
Thanks.
think?
Thanks. It's all the healthy living.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Oh man. Speaking of healthy living, that's another thing that I wanted to talk to you about. That I'm aware of, that the people are not aware of. That you, I don't know when this happened, but you were infected with Lyme disease, correct?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think I've had it for 16 years.
16 years.
Yeah. So I knew I had it a little over 4 years ago, where it sort of presented itself in a way that it was quite obvious. But for around 12 years, I experienced little health-related issues that no one could ever really figure out what they were. Joint pains, sort of some cardiac irregularities, some mental fog, some GI issues, some neurological issues, and I would go for all this testing, and no one could ever establish that it was Lyme, because the testing that they provide to people is typically pretty inadequate. It doesn't cover a broad enough spectrum of
Really?
the possible tick-borne diseases, the bacterias the infections that they cause. And only when I met with someone who was Lyme literate, who was an acupuncturist and then a doctor that worked with him, was I diagnosed properly.
Lyme literate?
Lyme literate.
Oh, Lyme
Meaning,
literate.
There are many in the medical community that just don't recognize Lyme disease.
Yeah.
They don't understand it because it presents itself very differently for everyone. And so for 12 years it affected me, but it wasn't until probably 10 years into it where I started experiencing a lot of fatigue. And then ultimately, after moving from Hopkinton to Whitensville, after the move, the stress of moving, after leaving a house after 27 years, and just, going through the process of moving, it hit me. And it was pretty lousy, for the first year and a half or two. It was pretty tough to deal with, but thankfully it's under control now.
Yeah.
And,
So what do you do typically to try to keep it at bay?
I first had to, it's really all about self-care, just really taking care of myself and getting the sleep that I need and the hydration and eating properly and not overstressing myself unnecessarily, as we tend to do in business and travel. But I take a lot of supplements. I do some infusion therapy and get
Fusion
acupuncture.
therapy is what? Like what is
Infusion therapy is fluids that are put into your body. It's not chemotherapy because it's not it's not for cancer treatment, but it's a way to flush your body to try and get rid of the toxins and kill the toxins in the body and to help them leave the body. So I get 2 substances put into my body, and I do this every 2 weeks. It takes around an hour and a half. And that, along with supplements, and I'm gluten-free, dairy-free, and sugar-free. I cheat a little bit on the sugar, but I had to change my diet quite significantly, and been adhering to that for the past 4 years.
Did the doctor prescribe like unorthodox things like cigars and scotch, or is that?
He didn't prescribe it, but he didn't tell me that I couldn't do it. Because there are certain things that you must do.
This
to
is
enjoy
a
your
reference
life.
to what sometimes when I've gone to visit Barry, he
I will sip.
he will sip scotch with his guests and smoke a cigar.
We will smoke a cigar.
And
That
I
is
never combine those two, but it's a pretty good combination.
It's very nice.
It's a pretty good combination.
It doesn't stink.
And
Yeah.
so stress is kind of exacerbates a little bit that too. So has the potential
Yes.
to exacerbate the symptoms of Lyme disease.
Yes, because the Lyme disease attacks the neurological system,
Okay.
which then leads to, anxiety and stress compounded on top of, anxiety.
Yeah,
And then,
yeah.
you become very susceptible to many types of, health-related issues.
What are some of the things that you learned on how to deal with stress that are like, this is really works, this is really good?
As I mentioned, self-care, getting the rest that I need. I meditate every day. I do stretching every day, which is, yoga-like for 20 minutes. I get
20
out.
minutes. What else do you do? You do all these things.
I get up first thing in the morning. It's my morning
like 2 o'clock in the
routine.
morning, or?
No, I get up first thing and I meditate for 20, 30 minutes, and then I stretch for 20 minutes, and then take care of the dogs, and then I eat and take a shower and go to work. But I work from home, so I don't have a commute.
So it's been working.
Yeah, so the time that many people spend traveling, I can spend with my morning routine, and to start my day. But the meditation is extremely helpful. The mindfulness, recognizing the power of the breath, and the importance of just being really kind and gentle with yourself, versus always pushing yourself beyond what's reasonable. But I work in I'm in a consulting practice, but I have a lot of responsibility for building business, and so it's a lot of pressure. And that pressure motivates you because you have objectives and goals that you want to hit, but at the same time, to maintain your health, you can't let that become the dominant thing in life. Or I work so that it is not the dominant thing. That I try and live a balanced life, with work and self-care and spending time with my family.
Do a little
and
reading
friends.
too there, a little peaceful reading kind of?
I do some reading. Probably not the kind of reading that you would recommend, because I know that you're a philosopher and
No, what are you talking about?
a man of words and wisdom.
I'll tell you a great, before you tell me which type of reading, I'll tell you the type of philosophical book
Okay.
that I would recommend. Winnie the Pooh.
And why is that?
What?
Why is that?
Why is that?
Basic
Wait a
basic
minute.
lessons.
I'm asking the questions here. No. Winnie the Pooh is a wonderfully simple philosophical work in some respects.
Something even I could understand.
Even you.
Even me.
Even you.
Okay. I'll have to read it again.
Oh, you read it already?
When I was
Oh,
a
no,
kid,
read
and
it
when
as
the
an
kids,
adult.
As
Read
an
it
adult, I
now.
have not.
Yes, yeah.
I'm trying to. I probably read it to my kids.
Oh, you want to read it just
Okay.
for yourself.
Okay.
Just for yourself.
Okay.
I'll share with you a quote if you'd like to hear it.
Please.
From Winnie the Pooh. Well, it was Winnie the Pooh was talking, a couple of things that I noticed about Winnie the Pooh that were interesting. It was Eeyore, who's always kind of like the sad, bringing things down kind of character.
Right.
Oh, things are going to be terrible, it's going to rain. At the end of Winnie the Pooh, Christopher Robin is throwing a party for Winnie the Pooh.
Right.
Eeyore steps in and pretends that the party's for him until he has to be corrected. I thought that was an interesting twist here. Eeyore, who's always like this person that's always complaining or bringing things down or just kind of depressed, and suddenly he takes upon this kind of selfish attitude and says, "Oh no, the party's for me. Thank you very much." And finally said, "No, it's not. It's for Winnie."
Wow.
Isn't that it? I found that fascinating.
That is fascinating. All right.
Yeah.
I don't recall that. As I shared with you, my memory is.
Well, let's go back to when you were
not
5
great.
years.
Well,
Just-
what would you like to know about the 5-year-old me?
No, I'm just kidding. That wasn't that one thing that I wanted to share with you.
I've done a lot of work, and one of the I found a picture when I was 5, standing on the doorstep of my home in New York, and the person I was working with, she's into shamanic arts, just
know
sort
what
of
that
like a shaman, sort of helping you sort of
Oh, yes,
spiritual
yes.
spiritual investigation of your your past and previous generations and what from, you know, people that in your family and the genes, what carries forward to you, what stories do you take from them, and she had me picture myself as a 5-year-old, and so I had this. I found an old photo, sort of where was I at 5? What was I thinking about at 5, and what would the 5-year-old me want? And which is a pretty interesting question to ask yourself, because at 5, you know, you're so young, and you're obviously able to speak and communicate, and you're learning, and the whole world's in front of you, and yes, so it was a really interesting question to ponder.
So you went back in your mind a little bit.
Yeah.
What was I thinking when I was 5? Were you able to?
When I was 5.
Were you able to sit there with that person and kind of like, oh, I can touch this. I can.
I believe I did. It was some years ago that I did that, but it was an interesting.
5 years ago?
No,
Just kidding.
it's probably around 3.
3 years ago.
3 years ago. Yeah.
So did you remember even a little bit of, oh, this is where I was.
The
This is-
conclusions that I had at
Yeah.
5, no, not really. If I did, I would share them with you, but I don't remember anything
So you're
specifically.
just a blank when you
Just
were
a
5,
blank.
just-
Like my brain.
I can't
Just a
ask you-
blank
It wasn't
brain.
fair. It wasn't fair of me to ask you
It's
that.
perfectly
because I know
fair.
You're forgetting.
Well, you're not here to be fair, Miguel.
This is not a controversial show. Oh, that's wonderful. Well, the other quote from Winnie the Pooh, which I thought it was wonderful. Again, I recommend it. So sit down with it in your own time. And it was Piglet was talking to Winnie the Pooh, and Piglet said, asked him, Winnie, what is it that you think about when you first get out of bed in the morning?
Hmm.
And Winnie the Pooh said, what's for breakfast? And then he asked him, what about you, Piglet? What do you think about? And Piglet said, I wonder what exciting thing is going to happen today.
That's nice.
And so Winnie the Pooh pauses and ponders that, and then he says, well, that's the same thing.
But we know that it's
Yeah.
not.
There's little nuggets like that.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Well, I get up every morning and I focus on gratitude. Just being grateful for all the goodness in my life, and
Oh,
where I
yes.
live and who I live with and the things that I'm doing and the fact that I have a job, and so I work a lot on gratitude. You know?
That is wonderful, and it's interesting because I've been thinking about that a lot the last, let's say 5 years, let's say the last few years of my older self.
Your older self,
Yeah, I think gratitude, thankfulness,
yeah.
and that's a wonderful thing, isn't it?
It is, because you know, life can be tough, and stuff happens, and yet no matter how tough it is for you, there's always someone who's suffered more, or their life is more difficult, or you know, they haven't been blessed with the things that you've been blessed with. Just this afternoon, I went to the dentist and was working with a hygienist, cleaning my teeth, and she's been cleaning my teeth for probably 2 or 3 years, every 6 months. And today, I said, I don't remember, do you have children? And she said, yes, I have one, but I lost one.
She said that.
She said that to me,
Yeah.
right? And that was, so it was pretty intense, you know, and I just told her how sorry I was that she had to experience that. And, you know, she has another child who's well, and she said thank God for him, and because without him, you know, life would be very difficult. So, you know, we just never know, you know, what will come from day to day, and so, you know, you have to be. I feel it's really critical to be mindful of all the things that we have, to focus on those things versus what we want or what, you know, we lust for. So just being grateful. I think it's very important. Very important for me, as part of my daily practice, as part of my meditation. When I go to bed, it's the last thoughts that I have in my mind are gratitude as well. So I think it's powerful.
Now, when you think about When you think about gratitude, and we're talking about being thankful for the things that we have and how fortunate we are, and sometimes looking around us and saying we are blessed with many things that other people are less fortunate than we are, so we should be thankful. Now, do you sometimes turn to another side and think, or is there a place in you that also says, I can be thankful, or have you ever been thankful for a loss rather than what you have?
Thankful for a lot.
Yeah.
I've tried to be. I experienced a business situation where someone who I had sold a business to and who I mentored, who subsequently lied to me about a business opportunity that I was supposed to partner on him with, and partner with him on, and he ended up, stealing a business opportunity from me, and that happened, around 5 years ago, and I'm still working on getting rid of that, and I keep trying to find a way to be thankful for that, but I've yet to figure that out. I don't want the lesson from that to be that I can't trust anyone, because that wouldn't be good. Because I'm in business and I have lots of clients, and I'm a partner in a business. I have another business, a software business that I have with a partner, and I work and depend upon many people, for my livelihood. And it would be really bad if I approached everyone, in a distrustful way. So trying to sort of reconcile that and deal with that, and to be thankful for that, it's something that I've worked on quite a bit. But
Do you try? Do you set out to work on being thankful for it, or do you set out to get over it and
to sort of deal with it in a healthy way? But I haven't gotten there yet. No, it's still a burden for me that I work with. On a pretty much it surfaces every day, and I work on it every week. But it's still hurtful, and maybe that hurt won't go away. I don't know. But it was a loss. It was someone lied to me with something that I had worked very hard on, a business that I built and sold. But when I got sick, I couldn't continue to do it, so I sold the business. So it's been I guess a growth opportunity, but I'm not
That's
quite.
just kind of try to look at it that way.
I've tried to.
It's not quite.
Yeah, I'm not there yet.
Do you feel that you can kind of sense or get at least somewhat closer to what you feel you might be holding on to, that's not just letting you go from that? Or
I'd like to.
yeah,
I'd like to, but I haven't.
do you know what it is that you're holding on
It's
to?
anger.
Anger.
I'm angry, and
Because
I'm mad at myself because I fell victim.
Yeah.
And my wife and children forewarned me about this person, but I didn't listen. I didn't pay attention. I didn't heed their warnings, because women know. Our wives, they always know.
Yeah,
right?
but we don't.
Your wife knows. My wife.
We
knows.
don't always listen.
We don't
obviously.
listen. I thought I knew better. I learned a valuable lesson. So maybe that's my lesson. Always listen to my wife.
Maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I don't know either.
It's your life, man.
Yeah, that's right. It is.
I was gonna say good luck with all of that. I'm just kidding.
That's right.
No, what I was gonna say, the wives know, but we don't always listen. But what was I thinking? I was actually thinking when you were saying the anger. Somebody told me one time that when you are, because I have never been angry in all my life.
Never.
Never. I'm just.
I love that.
Obviously, I have been angry.
Of course.
At people, but here's the thing I noticed when I look back and I think about what I heard one time. Somebody said, when you are angry at somebody, like when you live with that anger, that means that person has control over
They
you.
have power over you.
That person
I've
has
given
power
them
over
power.
you.
Yes.
Isn't that interesting?
Yes, and I completely agree with that. And it's what's funny is that there's a part of numerology that's related to letters, and I don't know if it's called something different, but I think it's part of sort of the study of numerology and the study of numbers. And in my career, I've worked for 5 people named Charles, or Charlie.
Yeah.
Of course, not intentionally. And in one case, the guy was the chairman of the company and wasn't the person I worked for directly, but in every other case, it was the person that I worked for. And I've always wondered, does that mean something? And the person that I had this business experience with, his name is Michael. And the last house that I owned, the person that moved in next to us, his name was Michael. And we decided to leave Hopkinton to move to Whitensville. And the guy that lived next to us when we moved in, his name was Michael. And then he sold his house, and the guy that moved in, his name is Michael. So there perhaps is a message.
I am closing that gap tonight because my name is Miguel. So.
Well, and your name is Miguel. Oh my God! Oh my God! Didn't
There you go.
See that? All right.
It's all gonna come together tonight.
Maybe this is like a really important milestone in my life.
This
Okay.
is
I did not connect those dots.
Today is
Miguel.
the day that you will be free.
I think of you as Miguel, not Michael.
Oh,
So,
same.
I'm not, but that's a really interesting point. No, it is, right?
It is.
It's like all of these Michaels around me. What is
Michaels
that?
and Charlies.
What is that? Michaels and Charlies. What
I
does
don't know.
that
That's
mean?
just that's very esoteric for me.
Yeah, yeah.
Too esoteric. I don't even know what that word means, but I'm just using
Esoteric, but
to
it
impress you.
fits.
Yeah.
It fits. Sort of irregular or unusual. I think is probably more the
Unusual.
definition. Yeah.
Unusual. Have you ever met anybody? Oh, I'm sure you have. I just want you to
I've
share with me somebody that you have met that you thought it was a little unusual, a little eccentric, or so forth, or something to that effect, different, and you thought this is interesting, and then you met that person and you got to know them a little better and found out, wow, I really judged that person, and there's so much more to them than if I had just stopped at that place where I thought they were too eccentric for me, I would have missed
course.
out on all this.
Of course. That's a common trait.
It never happens to me.
You're very special.
So tell me, I'm eccentric. Tell me about some people like that. One person that you know.
That's a
You don't have to name them if you don't want to.
No. No. Who have I met that at first reaction and then later on sort of learned something significant about? Well, can I be corny and say you?
You can be corny.
Okay,
I actually
because-
prepared that so you would say me, so we could talk
Okay.
about me.
Because one of the things that surfaced in our time together was your deep appreciation for philosophy and reading, because you are a deep thinker, and you're well read. My wife is very well read. I am not well read. I read a lot of nonfiction, and I read a lot of business and business books and magazines, but issues around philosophy surface in all of whenever we spend time together, and your view on the world. So
You judged me at first, huh?
I did. I didn't know it was there. I didn't know that was
You can't
part
really
of,
tell. You can't really tell by looking at a
no,
person.
I didn't know that was part of you.
But I judge people all the time.
Oh, it's
People say,
normal.
"Oh,
I mean,
man."
we approach someone, we
Yeah.
see certain things.
That's all we see, yeah.
Right, appearance, and then it triggers certain things in our mind based upon our life experience and how we respond to certain stimulus, and then we engage in conversation, and sometimes it's very different from what we expect. So,
What was the name? Oh, it wasn't. You said it wasn't the name Michael, the guy that screwed you over, too,
Yeah.
was it? Oh, okay. So
Yeah.
that's like
yes, I'm watching you. But maybe that was a gift. I just haven't figured it out yet.
Well, I would say, not to belabor that point, but I would say that you were able to articulate the idea of I need to not to live like that, not trusting other
Yes.
people. That is a big lesson to learn.
Yeah, of course.
That's a big lesson. And if
Yes.
it came through that or through other things, but you could say one thing is that you learned that from that bad experience. You learned.
Yeah, and I definitely went out and I started a business. I started my boating business in 2002, and I had never owned a boat before.
Mm-hmm.
And yet, you know, a year later, I owned 50 boats, and then 3 years later, I owned 250 boats.
Yeah.
And
How did
so
that happen like that?
I was just, you know, I wanted to do something on my own. You know, I'd had some ups and downs in a business experience. I'd been laid off from a job and was furious that I was put in that position. And I just decided that I was going to do my own thing, and I wasn't going to be dependent upon other people, and I was going to take, you know, my future into my own hands, carpe diem. And so I went out and started this business, and there was a building sitting idle at Hopkinton State Park, and I admired it for many years, and just approached the state about running a business, and, you know, gave them a proposal, and they were, you know, gracious enough to award it to me. So all of a sudden I won the business, and next May I had to open up and get started. So I, you know, figured it out, and, you know, I learned that you know, if you work hard, you have good intentions, and you try and you take risks, that, you know, good things can happen.
Mm-hmm.
So I was very fortunate.
So you're like you said you were an adventurer too.
Yeah, well, I like, I've always enjoyed traveling off trail,
Yeah.
which is probably why I got Lyme disease. But, you know, whenever I go out hiking with friends, you know,
Yeah.
you've been with me, but we've only been on trails.
Mm-hmm.
But for a very long time, I would bike and hike off trail, go into the scrub and go the water's edge and go into places perhaps I shouldn't have been. And friends would often say, "Why are you doing this?"
Yes.
There's-
Why you do that?
Because, you know, I just don't want to follow the place that everyone else has been. Because as long as I keep my wits about me and watching the sun and being mindful of landmarks and where's the water, where's the road, listening for things, as long as your senses are alert,
Yeah.
you know, and you manage the risk, you know, in terms of time of day and weather and what have you, then you'll find your way to where you need to be, but you'll probably see some things you didn't expect to see. So it's the things that you didn't expect to see that I'm searching for. You know, the unusual, the different, the new.
Where did you get that from, you think? Like, let's talk about your family a little bit. Who do you think you got that from in your family?
I'm guessing, you know, my father, my folks are thank God still with us. They're 86 and 92.
Wow.
Actually, my dad turns 93 on Thursday. My father was a sales guy. My mother went to like 2 years of college. She had skipped 2 grades. She was very bright. Her father, my grandfather, was an entrepreneur. He traveled the world as an importer. My other grandfather, who came from Russia, he owned a poultry market.
Poultry?
Poultry.
Huh.
You'd walk into the shop, and you'd have racks of birds, all different types of birds.
You remember that?
I remember walking in as a kid. You know, chickens, turkeys, pigeons, duck, and you'd walk in, and customer would say, "I'd like a duck," and he would take it, he would slaughter it in the back, and then he'd cut it up,
Fresh duck.
fresh duck. And I remember as a kid going in, and you know, when you're a little kid, you remember getting a little rabbit's foot.
Yeah, for luck. right?
And do you
Good
remember
luck.
what was on the top of the rabbit's foot? It was like a little
ring or something.
what?
A little ring or
A
something.
little
the
ring,
keys?
like a little brass,
Yeah, yeah.
you know, piece
Yes,
at the
yeah.
top with a little chain.
Yes.
Well, you know, I would go to Grandpa's, and he would give me a rabbit's foot.
Get a
but it would
fresh
have-
rabbit's foot.
It would have literally, you know, bone shards and blood on it. Yeah. So I suspect that I got that entrepreneurial nature from both, you know, both sides of the family, from my grandfather and from both of my grandfathers, who were very entrepreneurial in nature. I suspect that that's where it came from. But, you know, I have a brother that's a doctor, so he didn't get that, although he did have his own medical practice for 25 years, so he was certainly entrepreneurial as well. So I think it's
Medical
def-
practice.
yeah, it's
his
definitely
own.
definitely in the blood,
Yeah. Huh.
you know.
So that's a good thing. It's another thing to be thankful for.
Absolutely,
Oh.
absolutely.
So what if you're going to, this is maybe, well, it's not necessarily a difficult question, but it's kind of it's not as direct, I guess. But if you were to start another business in the future,
when you said you needed a partner, and you know your experience with a partner before was not a good experience. So what would you look for besides your wife's advice? On
Besides what?
your wife's advice on the person.
My wife's advice?
What would you keep an eye open for?
Someone that I can trust.
Well, I mean, of course, but what is it that what would you?
You know, I'd look for someone that was smarter than me. I'd look for someone that had more money than me. I'd look for someone who had skills that, you know, complemented mine in different ways.
Yeah.
I'd look for someone that had experience starting and growing and perhaps selling businesses.
What would be the thing that you look for that would tell you, I can trust this person?
Years of experience working with them. You
Also,
know,
before you do a partnership, you have to be working with that person.
I have
for
to know.
years.
I have to have known that person.
So this guy, you hadn't worked with him.
He worked for me,
Yeah.
and then I sold him my business,
Okay.
and then I tried to help him grow his business and mentored him, and then
Okay.
he.
So that's probably one of the reasons that it hurt.
Oh, yeah.
You were trying to help this person too.
Yeah, I was contractually
Yeah,
obligated to help him for a year, but
Yeah.
I helped him for 4 years, way above and beyond.
Okay.
You know, going on road trips with him and looking at sites and taking his phone calls and helping with all his planning and you know, was a mentor. And then he went ahead and, you know, screwed me.
Okay.
So
I would say personally that you probably learned other things because I think that would leave a person kind of what's that word? Jaded.
Mm.
But you don't look like a jaded person to me.
I'm
You look
not
like a
jaded.
generous person. You look at trusting person.
Yes.
You don't look like a dumb person that would just I
I
don't know. of
don't, I
another
don't
word.
believe I am.
Yeah. So
Some might say differently, but I don't believe that I am. You know?
some people say that I'm dumber than I look.
Hey, who cares?
I was just reading. I just thought about this joke that somebody said. My parents didn't like me. He said they used to rent me out to other parents who didn't want to beat up their own kids. Anyway,
Hopefully not true.
well, that's good. Now this voting, that's an exciting thing. Right now, you're doing applications, correct?
So right now I work for a consulting company, and it's in the information industry.
Mm-hmm.
And so we build information products for clients that help. They're usually oriented around sales, marketing, and risk decisioning.
Mm-hmm.
So products that would fall into the category are if you call into a call center and you're shopping for insurance, we would provide products that would tell the insurance company basic demographics and behavioral history of an individual and deliver that data sub-second time to a desktop so someone can make a decision regarding the kinds of offers that would be made to that person.
Mm-hmm.
Or it helps the company make decisions that might identify potential fraud situations.
So it's something that you started, or somebody else started, or a
No,
group of
I
team of
work
people?
for the third person I work for named Charlie started it.
Charlie,
Charlie. And
no Michael. Michael is
not Michael. No,
okay,
guy
that's-
named Charlie.
Okay.
And he was a PhD out of Bell Laboratories, a research center from Bell Labs, and he came up with these ideas. And so I first worked for him over 20 years ago, and then joined this company for him with him 12 and a half years ago. And this September it'll be 2 years that he passed away. He climbed up on a ladder at his home to look at his solar panels and fell off and hit his head and died. So, you know, I'm constantly reminded of that because we never know, right? And so that expression of, you know, seize the day, carpe diem, is
Carpe
something
diem.
that I take to heart.
Who
every
said that?
day.
Cicero, or who was it that said
I don't know. You would know. I would not
that? I
know.
think it was Cicero. I could
Okay.
be wrong.
Okay.
I don't have to know all this stuff.
Yes,
I
you
read
do.
a little
I
philosophy.
count on you to know these things. Miguel.
I read a little philosophy.
Okay.
I love a good quote though.
You love a good quote?
I love a good quote.
I
And
like
the-
that. That's a good quote. I love a good
I
quote.
love a good
That in
quote.
and of itself is a good quote.
You can use it anytime.
All
you
right,
want.
thank you.
Give credit where credit is
I
due,
will.
though. No, speaking of that, that brings me back to the theme of gratitude.
Yes.
You know, and I joke a little bit with my wife because we've been trying to do a little more traveling, having a little more fun, not so much work, but a little more fun. And so, just recently we heard of this gentleman that we didn't know. We knew his business and we knew who he was, but we didn't know him personally. But we didn't see him one day, and then a couple of days later, we heard that he just gone into his truck and just passed away right there.
Wow.
And so I kind of like, I use that, you know, when we gotta get away or whatever. I shouldn't use it as a joke, but it's more like
No, it's
love.
it's real.
Remember the man in the truck, you know. But the quote that I heard is from another philosopher. I can't remember who the name was, but it's a pretty striking quote because it's about death, and it's death speaking to someone and saying, "Death pricks up my ears and tells me, live, I am coming." So that's pretty powerful, isn't it?
Yes, very, very much
Because
so.
the very idea of things ending at some point is like the motivation at that time
Yeah.
to live.
Our mortality is
Yeah.
it's very real.
Yeah. I mean, we're talking about that right now, so that's what came to mind. I'm thinking,
Yeah.
huh.
Sure.
But we don't have to be like.
Let's not be morbid.
Yeah.
No, we're not morbid.
But it's
We're just
something-
we're being
Yeah.
real.
It's something that you think about sometimes. don't
Sure.
you?
Sure. Because it's real. I have elderly parents.
Yeah.
You know,
90.
92 and 86. My wife's mom is, I think, 84.
Mm-hmm.
So we're blessed to have, three of our parents around. And my wife's father passed away over 20 years ago suddenly, from a massive heart attack. And, so, listen, I want to be around a long time to,
And
with
there's
my
nothing
wife
wrong
and
with
kids.
looking back sometimes too.
No?
And I think the reason why I say that is just to frame the question is what is it that you would like people to look back when you're not around anymore and they think of you?
Meaning, do I want to write my eulogy? Is that what
No.
you're asking me to do?
Maybe, I don't know.
No.
If you want to put it that way, yeah.
Well, I want to be remembered as, loving and a caring, father and spouse and parent and friend. Because I do think that, everything starts and ends with love. Because if it's there, we can help one another through life's, challenges. And if it's not, then life gets much tougher. So that's how I'd
Oh.
like to be remembered.
That's a big word though, love.
It is.
Like
It's
that
a
would
four-letter
be,
word.
That's a 4-letter word.
It's a really good four-letter word.
How
That's
do you
right.
find defining that sometimes in your mind? Like, what does that mean? What does that mean in your life?
What does love mean in my life?
Yeah. Because you said because you said you want to be seen as somebody, a loving person, husband, family man, friend.
Yeah.
So now, what does that mean in your head?
I want the people in my life to know that they were cared about, that I love them, I thought about them, that they were really important to me, and that I did everything I could to take care of them, and to be a good man, trusting, honest, loving, supportive, helpful, and mindful, and respectful.
Well, let me challenge you. Can I challenge you a little bit with that then?
Maybe. I'll tell
It's
you.
a good challenge. It's a good
sure.
challenge. Now, you're talking about loving the people that you love, like the people that you have kind of reason to love, in a way, which is we all do. I mean, those are the people that we can love, and there's nothing bad about that. That's a good thing to love those people.
Of course.
But if you ever wonder about loving, or that's why I wanted you to wonder about defining what that love means. You ever wonder about that love stretching outside of that and thinking perhaps I could use that definition that I have of love in my head and expand it to somebody who I wouldn't immediately think of loving.
Sure. I'd say in small ways. Around probably 5-6 years ago, I had this realization that I wasn't and it's perhaps not love. It's really just enjoying the people that I'm spending a lot of time with, which, people at work, and I work remotely, so people that I work with, I'm working with over the phone. But a good friend of mine many years ago gave me a recommendation. I was job hunting and I had 3 different job offers, and I had to make a decision. And he said to me, think about the people that you're going to be working for and with, because after your honeymoon ends on your job and you're 6 months in and you're day to day and you're spending 8 hours a day or more on the phone with these people or in their office or working with them, if those people are people that you think you'd want to spend time with, then that's the job you should take. All right, and I use that as a filter to make a decision regarding which company I would go work for. And that was phenomenal advice. And to this day, I'm still very close with the gentleman that hired me, even though the company was sold and I ended up leaving and he's retired, but we're still very good friends. And it was just my friend's recommendation, just be mindful of the people that you're going to be spending time with. And so I took that to heart, and 5-6 years ago, I made a concerted effort to make sure that the people that I work with and the people that are my clients, that I go beyond the superficial, and I make sure I know about them and their likes and desires and wants and their interests and about their families and their children, to make sure that I got them and that I understood them. So again, it's I don't love them, but I do enjoy working with them, and I do have some clients that really really fond of, and colleagues that I'm really fond of. But it's on the scale of relationships. As I said, I don't love them, but I do enjoy working with them, and I have enjoyed getting to know them. So I hope I answered the question. What was the question? What was the question, Miguel? Seriously.
Well, you answered another question, but
I answered another question.
I saw.
What was the question?
I'll tell you that.
I will
but
go
just-
back and watch this, and
I'll-
I will see how I screwed up my answer. But
No, you didn't screw it up at all. No, you're like it is an expansion of love.
oh yes,
outside.
You asked me about expanding, taking
yeah,
the love and
yeah.
moving it out.
Yeah.
Well, and there's another.
But I like that. I like your commentary actually.
Okay, thank you. So my wife and I decided some years ago when we moved here that we wanted to do some volunteer work together, and so we found opportunities to volunteer with the Alternatives organization, which is now called Blue Sky or Open Sky, I think. And so we became part of this Club 21 program, where my wife and I each have a member of that group, and we volunteer and do activities and take our they're our friends now, take them on adventures, and last year we probably went to 15, 20 places with them. And my buddy I took to the Red Sox game a couple of weeks ago, and we had the whole group over to our house the other day to watch a movie together. And so, and it's Gabrielle and I, my wife and I, just feel it's like the best thing that we've done, as other than being parents and having friends, but just sort of as a couple, volunteering and helping others, and the folks that we're working with, one lives in a shelter, and one lives in a government housing and is disabled, and just the fact that we're their friends, we're not there to heal them or solve their problems, we're just there to be with them and spend time with them, and it's been wonderfully beneficial for my wife and I, to do that, to have that experience.
You're stepping out.
Yeah, so we have definitely reached out beyond our core, and now we feel like we have new relationships, new friends, and new people that we really enjoy being with and doing things with. So yeah, I think my wife and I have definitely done that.
That's good.
So that was that was the important part of my response. The other part is truthful and important, but not as meaningful certainly as what we've done just by giving of ourselves and just trying to help people that have much less than we do, who need support.
You made me think about when you the first answer, which is a wonderful thing to share, because to think about that before you do anything with anybody. Think about the people that you're going to be spending time with,
Yeah.
and learn more about them. But it made me think about this movie. I love movies.
Yes.
So there's a documentary actually by about John McNamara, who's I think he was the Secretary of State during the Nixon administration,
Yeah.
and he was kind of overseeing a lot of the operations in Vietnam and so forth. And he had to talk to a lot of people. They always asking him questions and press him about things and the issues that were going on at that time. And he said, one thing that I learned is when somebody asks you a question, answer the question that you wish they had asked you.
Well, I have a quote or something that I learned, a lesson that has stuck with me along the same lines.
Yeah.
Slightly different, which is, we have one mouth and two ears. So we should be listening twice as much as we're talking. And I find that hard at times because I do like to talk. It is my nature, but I think that's a really strong statement. It's
Yeah,
just
two ears.
2 ears.
Yeah.
Listen.
There's a quote, I don't know if it was motioning me, quote by James, the book of James. He says, be slow to speak, quick to listen, and slow to anger. And I haven't learned to do that. But that's like
It's all right.
revolutionary when you start practicing it. And so-
Yes, yes.
So it's actually be quick to listen, slow to speak, slow to anger.
Yeah.
So this is first thing is to be quick to do that, do a lot of listening. Be slow to speak. So sometimes I told my kids, and I should tell myself this, is think about things twice before you speak,
Hmm.
and slow down.
That's,
But I think it's been a wonderful time.
the hour is up.
Barry, the hour's up. It's
Wow.
going by very fast.
Wow.
Time flies when you're having fun.
It was fun.
I really appreciate you coming in and joining me. I hope you had a great time.
I did. This was really nice. Nice experience.
And thank you for joining us. Go ahead,
Thank you.
Barry, you were going to say something?
I said thank you.
Oh,
It was a wonderful experience.
no problem.
Thank you.
We will see you next week to meet another person that will share their story here at People of Interest. Thank you for joining us.